Welcome to IE News. I'm Leila Musimwa. Here are the top stories. Donald Trump will not rule out force to take Panama Canal and Greenland. Rescue search for survivors after earthquake in Tibet claims at least 126 lives. President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev calls for constitutional amendments in Armenia to secure peace deal. US President-elect Donald Trump, during a press conference, made series of bold and controversial proposals that have drawn significant international attention. In less than 2 weeks, Trump will be inaugurated as US president, but his ambitious and polarizing agenda is drawing mixed reactions both domestically and internationally.
President-elect Donald Trump declined to rule out military or economic action to regain control over the Panama Canal and acquire Greenland, describing them as crucial to U.S. economic and national security. To pressure Denmark into selling Greenland, he suggested imposing tariffs, despite Denmark's firm stance that Greenland is not for sale. When asked if he could rule out using military or economic force to gain control of the Panama Canal and Greenland, Trump said he cannot assure that on either of those two.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made, by the way. Giving the Panama Canal is why Jimmy Carter lost the election, in my opinion, more so maybe than the hostages.
Trump also reiterated interest in making Canada a U.S. state, criticizing American spending on Canadian goods and military support. Another striking proposal was Trump's vow to rename the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America, which he praised as a beautiful name. He also restated his intention to impose significant tariffs on Mexico and Canada, further straining relations with two key U.S. neighbors.
Economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. We don't need anything they have. We don't need their dairy products. We have more than they have. We don't need anything. So why are we losing $200 billion a year and more to protect Canada? No, right. But why are we supporting a country, $200 billion plus a year? Our military is at their disposal. All of these other things, they should be a state. That's why I told Trudeau when he came down, I said, what would happen if we didn't do it?
Turning to defense, Trump proposed NATO members increase their defense spending target to 5% of their GDP, criticizing allies for not meeting existing commitments.
Well, I think NATO should have 5%, yeah. Well, you can't do it at 2%. I mean, at 2%, every country, if you're going to have a country in a regular military, you're at 4%. I think they should be, they're in dangerous territory. I think it should be, they can all afford it, but they should be at 5%, not 2%. I'm the one that got them to pay 2%.
The press conference held a day after Congress formally certified Trump's election victory. President-elect prepares to take office on January 20th.
Panama's government has strongly responded to US President-elect Donald Trump's remarks about the Panama Canal. The country's foreign minister has firmly reaffirmed Panama's control over the vital waterway. At the press conference, Foreign Minister Javier Martinez Acha dismissed Trump's claims of financial offer for the canal, calling them untrue. He emphasized that the Panama Canal sovereignty is hard-earned, irreversible achievement and will remain under Panamanian control. The minister assured the international community of Panama's neutrality, highlighting the canal's mission to serve global trade while rejecting any potential interference. A wildfire in Los Angeles is steering through the upscale Pacific Palisades neighborhood, forcing mass evacuations. Over 30,000 residents have fled as flames fueled by strong winds threaten homes and wildlife.
The wildfire, which began Tuesday, has already burned over 510 hectares in the Pacific Palisades area, nestled between Santa Monica and Malibu in the United States. 30,000 residents have been forced to evacuate as flames engulf homes and create gridlock on roads leading to safety. Firefighters are battling around the clock using aircraft to drop water and bulldozers to clear roads for emergency vehicles. Television images show homes engulfed in flames and traffic at a standstill as residents attempt to flee. The National Weather Service has issued its highest fire alert, warning the worst is yet to come as wind conditions are expected to worsen overnight.
Yeah, this fire came out from, looked like the ridge on top of Palisades Drive and like Lockman Lane, etc. And the wind was howling at 38, 40 miles an hour, major gusts, and it's just blowing right down to the beach.
Flying embers have already set palm trees ablaze along Sunset Boulevard, with firefighters working to contain the damage and prevent further evacuations.
Well, obviously people's lives. Property damage is property damage. Losing lives, dogs, animals, horses, a lot of horses in the neighborhood. So, yes, so that's what matters.
The situation remains critical as firefighters race against time to protect lives and property in one of LA's most exclusive neighborhoods.
At least 126 people have been confirmed dead following a major earthquake which struck the foothills of the Himalayas on Tuesday, according to Chinese authorities. The quake destroyed hundreds of houses near the world's highest mountain, leaving hundreds injured, according to reports. Local fire and rescue teams confirmed efforts to locate both victims and survivors in the aftermath of the devastation. Tremors from the quake were also felt in neighboring Bhutan and India. As a search for survivors entered a second day after a strong earthquake in Tibet, our Laura Westbrook reports about the latest developments from Hong Kong.
Videos on Chinese state media showed rescue workers pulling victims from the rubble, and officials say they've rescued more than 400 people. Now, this is a remote part of Tibet near the Himalayan border with Nepal. More than 3,600 houses were destroyed by this 6.8 magnitude quake. According to reports, many of the fallen houses were constructed from materials such as stone, mud bricks, and wood. Now, the high altitude and temperatures overnight dropping to as low as minus 18 degrees Celsius are hampering efforts to find survivors and also affecting those left homeless. Footage on state media showed families huddled in tents erected by soldiers. They have been given electric heaters, but they are having to deal with these very cold conditions. Survivors are also having to contend with hundreds of aftershocks. Some 30,000 residents have been relocated, and Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for all-out search and rescue efforts. He's also ordered survivors to be properly resettled. We've also heard from other world leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin, who expressed his sincere condolences. Now, the closest city to the quake's epicenter was Tibet's second largest city of Shigatse. This is regarded as a holy site, as the seat of the Panchen Lama, the second highest spiritual leader in Tibetan Buddhism after the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama has also said he was deeply saddened and offered his prayers to those who lost their lives. Earthquakes are common in the region, which lies on a major geological fault line, but Tuesday's was one of China's deadliest in recent years. Laura Westbrook for A News, Hong Kong.
In Australia, 3 people have died after a light aircraft crashed near Rottnest Island on Wednesday. The plane was carrying 6 passengers and plunged into the sea shortly after the takeoff.
3 people have been killed after a light aircraft crashed near the Western Australian city of Perth. The privately owned plane departed Rottnest Island carrying a total of 7 people, including the pilot. It then crashed into the sea moments after takeoff. A rescue team managed to save the surviving passengers, who have sustained injuries.
Tragically, we have lost 3 lives. We understand of the 7 passengers, 3 were couples and the pilot. 3 of those people are recovering in hospital, ranging from very minor injuries to a very serious hand injury. We are working with all of those survivors to understand what their observations were of the crash.
According to authorities, the crash occurred in front of holidaymakers, including families and children vacationing on the island. The deceased include the pilot from Perth and 2 tourists from Switzerland and Denmark. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau says expert investigators have been sent to determine the cause of the crash.
The International Committee of the Red Cross President Marianne Egger calls for international humanitarian law to be respected in Syria. She made a statement at the end of her 3-day visit to the country, during which she toured the cities of Aleppo and Idlib.
The president of the International Committee of the Red Cross, Marianne Egger, has concluded a 3-day visit in Syria. Her visit comes as the country has seen a transition in government following the ousting of former President Bashar al-Assad by a rebel group last month. Now, with an end to a 13-year-long conflict in the country, Egger emphasizes the need to respect international humanitarian law and provide answers for families of missing detainees.
There are potentially tens of thousands of missing people that we have not yet identified, but we are already following up on over 40,000 cases. This is a huge task ahead of us. I'm aware that thousands of families are looking for their relatives, and this is an agony that nobody wants to go through. We are working with our partners to be able to inform them as quickly as possible. But it's been years since the ICRC has had access to all detainees, and we see the consequences of it.
President Egger visited the cities of Aleppo and Idlib, in which she saw efforts to support essential services like water supply and healthcare, both of which have been heavily impacted by years of conflict. She also calls on stakeholders to protect such crucial infrastructure.
If anything happens to the power or the water supply coming from these 2 plants, it can potentially affect millions of people. So I'm calling on all the parties and everybody who has an influence to protect the sites, to protect at all times critical infrastructure, especially in the health sector, in the water sector, and in the energy sector.
Syria requires $4 billion in aid, and the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that only 33% has been funded, leaving a gap of over $2.5 billion.
Eurozone inflation accelerated in December. The unwelcome but anticipated blip is unlikely to derail further interest rate cuts from the European Central Bank's through.
Inflation in the 20 nations sharing the euro peaked up to 2.4% last month from 2.2% in November, in line with expectations. It was lifted by more expensive energy and stubbornly high services costs. The European Central Bank cut interest rates 4 times last year and said its target is now within sight. More policy easing is coming, although the speed and timing remain subject to debate. Price growth excluding volatile food and energy held at 2.7%. And the closely watched services component, the single biggest item in the consumer price basket, accelerated to 4% from 3.9%. A strong dollar in recent weeks has been making imports of key commodities more expensive, and that's feeding through to prices via more expensive energy, including car fuel. The dollar could rise even more if the new U.S. administration implements its trade tariff proposals.
Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev gave an interview to several television channels, including A News. The head of state shared his views on the country's social and economic situation, international and regional relations.
President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev spoke about regional and international issues during his big interview to several television channels, including A News. Commenting the issue on normalization of Armenia-Azerbaijan relations, the president stated that securing a peace deal with Armenia is possible only with the implementation of constitutional amendments in this country. He emphasized that such changes are essential for the stability and future relations between the two nations.
Ümid edirəm ki, bizim bütün sülh müqaviləsi ilə bağlı şərtlər.
I hope that all our conditions regarding the peace treaty will be accepted, because there are no extraordinary issues in these conditions. The abolition of the Minsk Group, the amendment of the constitution. Without these, a peace treaty is impossible. If Armenia does not need a peace treaty, we do not need it either. We can live and conduct our own policy without signing it. In other words, I would still advise the Armenian side to weigh everything up, including geopolitical changes in the world. Their close friends are being shamefully removed from the political scene. Yesterday, news came that Mr. Trudeau, a close friend of Armenia and Pashinyan, also had to resign.
Cənab Trudeau da vəzifədən getməli oldu.
President Ilham Aliyev also expressed his discontent with the European Union's actions in the region, particularly criticizing the EU's alignment with Armenia during the normalization process. He highlighted a series of disappointments, including the extension of the EU's observation mission without Azerbaijan's consent, which he argues undermined the trust.
It is difficult to say how our relations with the European Commission will develop, but I must say that last year was a year full of disappointments, because it was last year that the European Union unequivocally took Armenia's side in the normalization process. There are many facts, which you also know very well. Of course, the way the so-called observation mission of the European Union was extended did not strengthen, but on the contrary, undermined the trust. After all, when we demanded that it be agreed with us, it was not because we have some inflated ambitions, but simply because the very establishment of this mission and its sending to our border was agreed with us, personally with me, in Prague, in October 2022. If we agreed then that it would be 2 months and 40 people, then that is how it should be. When I agree, even in words, I always stick to these agreements. But in this case, Europe felt that they had the right to violate these agreements. But then, without any notification, without any agreement with us, they not only extended this mission, they increased it and even invited a country that is not a member of the European Union, essentially undermining trust. Now, what happens next, I don't know. The Commission is new, although some characters are old. But still, it is a new Commission, and what attitude to Azerbaijan and its national interests it will have, the same attitude will be to them.
President Ilham Aliyev reflected on the aftermath of the attack on Azerbaijan's embassy in Tehran, which he described as an organized act of terror. He highlighted inconsistencies in the Iranian government's response. He also criticized the actions of certain Iranian officials and demanded accountability for the insults directed at Azerbaijan, insisting that Iran must take concrete steps to address these issues and restore trust between the two nations.
It is difficult to analyze the relations with the new government because I have not personally met with the new president. If and when it happens, then I can talk about it. As for the provincial mullah's hateful attitude towards us, this is not the first time. That mullah from the city of Ardabil has repeatedly used insulting expressions against Azerbaijan, the Azerbaijani people, including me. The question here is what the attitude of the person who appointed him to that position is. After all, he did not come and sit there on his own. We know very well who appointed him. What is his reaction? Does he support this or not? And who will apologize to Azerbaijan? Will they apologize or not? The regret in the statement of the Iranian Foreign Ministry is not enough. There was an open insult. Both the presidents of Turkey and Azerbaijan, our peoples, and during a live broadcast at an official event. And only regret. This, of course, is unacceptable. Therefore, we believe that the provincial mullah should be punished. At the very least, he should be dismissed from his post and made to apologize to Azerbaijan. This is the point.
Ve Azərbaycandan üzr istəməlidir. Bax, məsələ bundadır.
President Ilham Aliyev was also asked about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. He reaffirmed Azerbaijan's long-standing position of supporting a two-state solution.
İsrail-Fələstin məsələsində də bizim mövqeyimiz dəyişməz olaraq qalır.
Our position on the Israeli-Palestinian issue remains unchanged. We have always been in favor of the creation. In other words, the existence of two states. The creation of an independent Palestinian state will put an end to this conflict. I think everyone should understand this. As you know, we have been supporting the Palestinian state for many years, politically, morally, and materially, and this continues. The Palestinian embassy has been operating in Azerbaijan for many years. We have also opened a representative office in Palestine, and of course, the sooner this conflict ends and a ceasefire is declared in Gaza, the better it will be for everyone.
Atəşkəs elan edilsə, o qədər də hamı üçün yaxşı olacaq.
Talking about Middle East issues, President Ilham Aliyev expressed strong support for the positive changes in Syria.
Türkiyənin marağında nədirsə bizim də marağımız.
Whatever is in Turkey's interest, it is in our interest too. Our security is the same, our interests are the same, and our future is the same, both in the Middle East and at the same time in Europe. We touched on this issue a little. A completely new situation is emerging. A strong Turkish factor will play a key role here. We are with Turkey. In other words, our power will increase even more. The vast geography encompassing Europe, Asia, the South Caucasus, and the Caspian Basin is already a serious geopolitical factor in itself. Military power, political power, economic potential, unity, and today it is impossible to see countries so interconnected as Turkey and Azerbaijan anywhere in the world. Therefore, we are very hopeful, and the changes in Syria make us very happy. First for Turkey, and secondly for ourselves. Because for 12 years, we have had no relations with Syria.
Bizim Suriye ile hiçbir alakamiz olmuyor.
President Aliyev also criticized French President Macron's recent accusations against Azerbaijan.
Fransa'ya geldikdə orada indi siyasi səhnədə nələr baş verir? İndi hər kəs özü görür.
As for France, what is happening on the political scene there now? Everyone can see that. Yesterday, the French president made further absurd accusations against Azerbaijan. It seems that Mr. Macron cannot live without Azerbaijan. He has some kind of mania and wants to blame all his sins on us. I think that if we have become so strong that we can interfere in the internal affairs of France and change something, we can simply be proud of it. In fact, this statement is an admission of his own helplessness. A president of a great state suffers from the actions of a country with a population of 10 million located far away in the Caucasus region. However, we have nothing to do with the internal affairs of France. Simply put, this was brought about by wrong approaches and irrelevant policies. If there is a consensus in French political circles, it is a consensus only on Azerbaijanophobia.
In response to a question from a news about the significance of COP29 being held in Azerbaijan, President Aliyev emphasized that it was both a challenge and an opportunity, with one key success being the resolution of the decade-long deadlock on the carbon market, achieving consensus on Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Additionally, financing saw a significant breakthrough, tripling commitments from $100 billion to $300 billion.
Yes, COP29 was a big challenge for us and, of course, a big opportunity. And our task was to convert the challenge into success. Of course, we clearly realized that Azerbaijan, as not the biggest gas emission country, cannot play a decisive role in bringing the world together. But we thought that our experience in international institutions and diversified foreign policy will help us to build bridges.
On energy cooperation with Europe, the head of state said that Azerbaijan has expanded its gas exports to 12 countries, including 10 in Europe, doubling supplies since 2022.
And for many countries, members of the European Union, Azerbaijani gas now makes about half of their domestic consumption. And this is really a serious support which we demonstrate to our partners in Europe. So our future plans are to expand the geography. We already are in negotiations with some other European countries which are close to those which are already receiving our gas. The country
President Aliyev outlined Azerbaijan's plans to boost output from new and existing fields, but emphasized that Europe must address financing challenges as banks pull back from fossil fuel projects. He stressed the need for Europe to invest in infrastructure to sustain and expand supply, noting that while Azerbaijan is doing its part, Europe must also fulfill its responsibilities.
SOCAR Turkey has unveiled its plan to invest a total of $7 billion to establish new petrochemical facilities in the coming years. The first feasibility study within the scope of the master plan, which envisages investment in the petrochemical field, has been completed, and the engineering design preparation phase will be initiated for detailed technical analysis.
Speaking at a meeting in Istanbul, SOCAR Turkey Chief Executive Officer Elçin İbarov said that the company, which started its operations in 2008, has invested $18.5 billion to date. According to him, they envisage an investment of approximately $7 billion to establish new petrochemical facilities, but there are many factors, such as which units will be established and from which countries those units will be bought, because of the front-end engineering design study. He stressed that the company expects the FEED period of the project to be 18 to 24 months, and the final decision phase of the project can be started with the completion of the FEED process by the end of 2026.
A new cybersecurity directorate has been established under the Turkish presidency following a presidential decree signed by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Headquartered in Ankara, the Cybersecurity Directorate will function as a public legal entity with a special budget. Its primary mission will be to ensure cybersecurity by developing policies, strategies, and action plans, as well as coordinating related activities. The Directorate will also focus on increasing awareness, education, and public understanding of cybersecurity, while promoting projects that support information security across the country. The Directorate's tasks include fostering collaboration among public institutions, private companies, and universities. It aims to strengthen Turkey's cybersecurity ecosystem by encouraging the development of domestic and national technologies. Efforts will also be made to enhance the competitiveness of local entrepreneurs in global markets through research and development, technology transfer, and the identification of vulnerabilities in cybersecurity infrastructure.
Located in China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, Boston Lake has become a focal point for tourists during the ice and snow season. Visitors can enjoy its breathtaking natural beauty while participating in various exciting activities.
The REACH program around Boston Lake offers tourists folk performances, snow sculptures in unique shapes, and diverse ice and snow sports. Activities such as camel rides on snow, cross-country snow races, and snowmobiling add to the lake's charm. This season, approximately 50 cultural and tourism events will be held at the lake. Highlights include winter fishing, a grand fish feast for 10,000 people, ice and snow tournaments, and desert cross-country races. These events promise to create a true festival of ice and snow for visitors.
I saw a lot of ice tourism projects and tasted the local specialities of mohu fish, as well as the boiled pear with the rock sugar. It is really great.
Boston Lake, whose name means oasis in the Uyghur language, is the largest, covering an area of over 1,600 square kilometers. This unique natural treasure was known as the Western Sea in ancient times. With its stunning landscapes and vibrant events, Boston Lake attracts both local and international tourists every year. For those seeking the magic of ice and snow, this destination is the perfect choice.
That's all for now, but don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to A News for more exclusive updates. We'll be back soon.